Hi all, I'd like to take the opportunity to welcome you to the next module on DTLLS, Unit 4, Theories and Principles for Planning and Enabling Learning. At this point, I'd just like to reinforce how important it is that you log on to Moodle on the Monday before the Friday session, where there will be pre-lesson material that you have to work towards completion before the Friday session. I can't stress enough how important that this is to enable us to get the most out of the lessons. I thank you in advance, and I also welcome your feedback on any of the materials that you're using. Thank you. There are 4 key session objectives for Session 1 on DTLLS. The first key objective is to be informed about the learning outcomes of the unit. It's very important that you have proper signposting for the next 9 to 10 weeks to enable you to have a clear picture of where we need to get to. The second key objective is to synthesise key aspects of learning theory. The third key objective is to review and apply 3 learning theories to appropriate case studies. Finally, it's important that we develop a thorough knowledge and understanding of the requirements of the assignment, and we will do this by looking at a model answer. For the purposes of the pre-lesson material, I'm now going to focus in on Lesson Objective 2, Key Aspects of Learning Theory. Previous to this Friday's session, and for the purposes of this material, we're now going to focus in on 3 key learning theories: behaviourism, cognitivism and constructivism. At this point, I just want you to stop for a moment and consider the idea of learning. I would like you to think about what you think you mean by the concept and the terminology learning. I would also like you to consider your past experience of learning throughout your life, and consider aspects of learning that you feel might have resulted in failure, aspects that you feel might have resulted in success, and I want you to consider key points that we can think about to help us instill learning in our learners. As a bit of background information, learning theories allow teachers to better understand the process of learning. Many people indeed believe that the process of learning is quite complex. We aim to deconstruct the concept of learning with specific relevance to learning theory. Together with the use of technology, learning theories have made a significant impact in the classroom. There are many learning paradigms. By a paradigm, I mean a train of thought. However, behaviourism, cognitivism and constructivism will be the focus for this session moving forward. When people think of behaviourists, they tend to picture someone in a white coat teaching tricks to laboratory animals. Not only does this give the behaviourist theory a bad press, it makes some teachers wonder how this can work and how possibly it has any relevance for their own professional practice. The reality, however, is that the behaviourist model can be a very useful one for understanding what motivates learners to comply, to cooperate and to learn. Of the behaviourists, Pavlov is perhaps the most recognised name. He is remembered for his salivating dogs, which illustrate very usefully the central behaviourist idea that all behaviour can be predicted, measured and controlled, and that learning is simply a matter of stimulus and response. When Pavlov's dogs were about to be fed, a bell was rung. They learned to associate the sound with being fed, and were eventually observed to be salivating at the sound of the bell before the food appeared. The sound was the stimulus, salivation was the response, This behaviourist mantra is sometimes represented as a stimulus-response formula and was applied not only to animal behaviour but was used, for example, by Watson to explain human behaviour too. The idea that human psychology or motivation can be viewed as a series of behaviours based on stimulus and response may seem to us now a rather reductive and mechanistic view, and one which it would be difficult to apply to the practicalities of teaching and learning in a humane way. More relevant to our purposes is the work of neo-behaviourists, the best known of whom is perhaps Skinner. The neo-behaviourists built upon the work of Pavlov and Watson and introduced two new ideas into behaviour theory. One was the suggestion that human behaviour is goal-orientated, that someone learning something will often have a sense of purpose in doing so. In other words, human consciousness is not confined to the present moment because we can both remember past experiences and we can also imagine a future, even when one goes beyond our own lifespan. Skinner emphasised the importance of reinforcement. And behaviour modification. Put simply, reinforcement means rewarding a desired behaviour. In order to encourage someone to behave in that way again, behaviour modification describes the process of doing this. We modify someone's behaviour by rewarding or reinforcing the desired behaviour. Conversely, we can use negative reinforcement to discuss undesired behaviour. What I'd like you to do at this point is consider this in the context of your teaching and make some notes. Cognitive is to do with thinking, and so as you might expect, the cognitives argue that thinking is central to the learning process. In other words, like the DTLLS, they argue that learning is about much more than the modification of behaviour through positive or negative reinforcement. It is, claim the cognitives, about the learner gaining progressively more and newer knowledge, while at the same time adapting or discarding old knowledge which no longer fits their growing insight into the world. From the teacher's point of view, this has important implications for the structuring and planning of lessons. The most important is that these should provide learning opportunities which will develop the learner's understanding and allow them to explore the relationships between ideas and concepts rather than, for example, simply learning to recite the bare facts about them. Two of the best recognised names are Dewey and Brunner. Brunner argued that the process of learning involves more than simply acquiring new skills or knowledge or understanding. It is central to the development of the individual as a whole. He saw knowledge not as a thing or object to be dispensed or acquired, but as a process. The structuring and sequencing of learner is, according to Brunner, of key importance in the teaching and learning process. At this point, I'd just like you to consider this idea with the aim of looking at this as a process. How does this relate to teaching in the context in which you teach? Constructivism is a theory based on observation and scientific study about how people learn. It says that people construct their own understanding and knowledge of the world through experience and experiencing things and then reflecting on those experiences. When we encounter something new, we have to reconcile it with our previous ideas and experience, maybe changing what we believe or maybe discarding the new information as irrelevant. In any case, we are active creators of our own knowledge. To this end, the teacher acts as a facilitator who encourages students to explore within a given framework. In the classroom, the constructivist view of learning can point towards a number of different teaching practices. In the most general sense, it usually means encouraging students to use active techniques. things like experiments and real-world problem solving to create more knowledge and then to reflect on and talk about what they are doing and how their understanding is changing. The teacher makes sure she understands the students' pre-existing conceptions and guides the activity to address them and then build on them. Constructivist teachers encourage students to constantly assess how the activity is helping them gain understanding. By questioning themselves and their strategies, students in the constructivist classroom ideally become expert learners. Learners may collaborate with others to organise their ideas and learn from each other to construct their own knowledge. It may be argued by some theorists that constructivism is now the most popular paradigm adopted in modern day classrooms. At this point, I'd like you to consider all three theories and first of all consider the learning process. How does each of those theories come to life in the context of your teaching? What type of support would you need to put in place to allow this theory to come to life in your classroom? I'd like you to consider the following table and make notes, and we can discuss this through Friday's session. In Friday's session, we are going to take part in a quiz to reflect on our understanding of behaviouralism, cognitivism and constructivism. I would like you to read the following articles for behaviourism, cognitivism and constructivism in preparation for Friday's quiz. I'd like you now to jot down any questions that you may have before Friday's session, and I'd like to also take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time to consider three very important theories of learning.